Hey, you ever want to play as one of the Noctyx boys in a D&D game? Then you probably hate my guts for taking just a little bit to get around to it. My bad. But let's just real quick go over a refresher since it's been so long. These are all D&D 5e character sheets, all book legal, except for when they aren't, but I keep the crimes as small as I can and try to include compliant variants just in case you or your DM is a bitch about that sort of thing. The stats are standardized by me because regular standard array is miserable, and I use the post-Tasha style of racial stats, aka +2/+1 in 2 stats regardless of the actual race because it's just so much nicer. The levels are not standardized, which absolutely makes them less useful if you want to actually run them, but oh well, it sells the character build way better. Backgrounds use the PHP custom rules of a background feature, 2 skills, and 2 tools or languages. And lastly, disclaimer, this is a joke. I'm a fucking joke. Please don't take this too seriously. Previous builds have ranged from levels 1 to 20 and include a rogue with more constitution and charisma than dexterity, and a wizard with a negative intelligence modifier. Even more important than you not coming after my ass for this, do not use this to bother any of the talents mentioned, please. I know my vast influence makes that difficult, but seriously. These builds are basically fucked up funhouse mirror versions of VTuber personas of people. This is so far removed from the talents, I'm about 2 steps away from using it as a fucking bit. But yeah, TLDR, eat joke, don't be asshole. Which I'm sure is a very reasonable ask for the very reasonable VTuber community and the very reasonable internet at large. So, starting off the actual content with Sonny Briscoe, man from the future and Special Forces officer for a unit that doesn't exist since, in the future. Very sad for him, makes him even more of a chuny than he already was, but for us, an alleged Special Forces officer means one thing: gunslinger fighter. Slight issue, he never actually fires a single shot in his lore video, instead choosing to bare hand beat everyone's ass, which, along with being chuny as shit, is definitely a monk kind of battle plan. Issue number 2, he's canonically always wearing his armor, and monks can't wear any armor without losing their class features. So, we're going to ignore that and give him monk level anyway. I mean, this is monk shit. Monk behavior. Monk coded. Note, if your DM calls bullshit, you can get basically the same effect by taking Fighting Initiate for a second fighting skill level 4 instead of a monk level, which ends up in basically the same spot at the cost of a feat, but fuck it. This is funnier. It's funny. Laugh. Actually, speaking of fighting styles, he's going to get unarmored fighting, which for our purposes just bumps his punches from D4s to D8s. For context, monks normally get that level of damage at level 11. So it's a little bit good. Plus, he does like kicking and getting better at kicking, so it fits. Plus, means we don't need to give him more than 1 monk level since everything past that is mystical key shit that we don't care about. Also, if your DM doesn't allow armor monk, then take 2 up in fighting for the whole thing like 10 seconds ago, then you just need to argue that unarmed attacks count as light, which is a lot easier since no weapon obviously weighs less than any other kind of weapon. Anyway, with 1 level of monk and a fighter subclass, he needs to be at least level 4, and not a single experience point more. He's a cop, and they don't need any more funding, and also fuck him. We should probably cover his stats before we go any further. Max strength is obvious, especially since monks don't actually need to use their dex for their punches, and he's going to be using heavy armor anyway. Actually, speaking of heavy armor, this basic human-ass bitch is getting a feat, and it's going to be heavy armor master for his heavy armor fetish again. This also bumps his strength by a +1, the real reason I brought it up now. Next is con, since this dude started a 15 to 20 story drop in his lore video, and isn't getting slowful to explain that shit, and also, he is wide as hell. Then dexterity, mostly just because, then charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. Now, I will not stop giving these people low wisdom. It's funny. Being a soldier makes him a soldier for what I hope are obvious reasons, except that soldier the background gives land vehicle proficiency, and soldier the Sonny hates driving, so instead he's getting what I'm going to call cook's utensils, but what we all know is actually a massive pack of green onions, so if you choose to use this build, you can more effectively RP being completely unhinged. He's still getting game set though. Couldn't be fucked to change that. For skills, he's getting athletics and intimidation from fighter. Please ignore the fact there's the ones you normally get from soldier. The background fighter skills are really limited. Stealth and performance are the background ones instead. Stealth from the stealth and performance mostly, so I can call him chuny again. For his human bonus proficiency, he's getting, let's say animal handling. For his secret knowledge of Shiba Inu. Yeah. I don't know. All of them felt either completely random or actively counter to the build concept. Just take whatever you want. But after skills, we're basically done. I mean, he technically gets 2 trick shot options from Gunslinger. You know, for the gun he doesn't use and isn't even getting, using the single grip point he gets from his negative wisdom modifier. But whatever, take the bullying and violent shots for the VSF's shoot first policy, I guess. For Uki, we have almost the opposite idea from Futures to Cop, a mystical psychic. He gets his power from the stars, and while there are a lot of star and night theme subclasses, they all suck ass what we're doing here, so the obvious winner is Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. The psychic option. We know for a fact that Uki can fly, which means he needs at least 5 levels in Sorcerer. I'm going to bump it up to 6 since it gives him some really thematic psychic powers, and honestly Noctyx is going to really be hurting for higher level characters anyway. And please stop looking at me like that. She was a really weird sorcerer build, I promise this one's different. Beyond just taking very different spells, Uki's also going to be taking 2 levels of Wizard to get Portent from the School of Divination subclass, which lets him be able to predict the future, technically, but not really, but close enough. Going to cover his feats first, 2 since he's Shock, also Variant Human, since both are going to give him a stat boost. And to absolutely no one's surprise, he's getting Telepathic and Telekinetic. Telepathic lets you talk in people's brains, but they don't get to talk back. But you get to detect thoughts once free, so you can use that, I guess. Plus, it's basically add to your spell list, though the wording on that is honestly kind of fucked. Telekinetic gives you Mage Hand but without needing components and is invisible. Plus, if you already have Mage Hand, it doubles the range, so Uki will, and the ability to show people around with your brain. And again, both feats give +1 of whatever stat you choose to use for the spell's DC when you take the feat, which for Uki is going to be Charisma. That's going on top of the base 16 and a racial +2 for a sweet, sweet 20 in his main stat. And then Wisdom and Intelligence is his next highest, since he speaks some Latin and can deal with even Selen's mind games, and most importantly of all, they're gay, with serious appreciation for fat man tits. So the build needs to be as big brain as possible. Dex next, since he can actually run in heals, which would definitely give them better dex than 12 if it was available. Then Con and Strength. Con higher only because giving the Sorcerer Wizard negative health per level would be fucking cruel. All the class features are just spells we'll cover later, or telepathic speech that makes a quarter of his feats useless, oops. So next up are his background and skills. They're going to get the Far Traveler background weird bitch feature, which you might think is from him being some weird star baby or being from the future, but actually his, to quote the background, accent, mannerisms, and figures of speech are from being queer, which is obviously much more important. Their skills are going to be Arcana and Persuasion from Sorcerer, Performance from Hewin covers ASMR and karaoke singing being his most popular. From his background, Acrobatics since he can, again, run in heels like some kind of fucking demon. And finally, Perception, so he can look better into the future and also at men. Last are spells, which are many because of his feats and subclass and wizard, so I'm going to do them all in one long line. Ready? Good. Cantrips are Mold, Earth, Shape, Water, Control, Flame from Wizard, and Buff, Mage, Hand, Minor, Release, Concentration, Fire, spells, Kill Me, plus Detect Thus, and Telepathic. Anyway, Alban has a 3 really prominently on his scarf, so he's next. And first thing I want to cover is his race, since it's actually not Variant Human this time. It's Tabaxi, because I am not immune to calling Alban a Catboy. Though, it actually gives him a lot of great shit. Dark Vision, Climbing Speed, Natural Weapons, 2 of the better scope proficiencies in Perception and Stealth, and one of, if not the best movement abilities in the game in the form of Feline Agility, letting him double his speed for a turn for free, especially go on any class that can bonus action dash, hint hint. To actually justify the features beyond haha Catboy, Alban's incredibly stealthy, and his hair clips, cat ears, that increases hearing or skills. His yellow eye can see in the dark for dark vision. He doesn't have any obvious weapons and doesn't seem like a hand-to-hand type, so he must have it concealed, perchance in the form of claws. And finally, what kind of thief can't climb or outrun the cops? Also, yes, he's a thief. So he's not only obviously a rogue, but a specific subclass of rogue, and as bad as I want to make him level 2 for the bit. Bad enough that he was level 2 until I started writing this script. I really can't justify not giving him the subclass like I did Mista, so unfortunately he has to be level 3. Whatever, doesn't actually give him that much, just better sneak attack and the subclass features. Climbing speed, oops, a longer jump for dramatic rooftop escapes, I guess the feature is called second story work after all, and fast hands, which lets him use his hands fast. More specifically, it broadens what cunning action lets him do as a bonus action to more thief shit and using an object. Bit broad in my opinion, but whatever. Rogue means maxed out dex if you wanted to Mista. Con and Strength next, half because of the hard life he led before in the future, probably making him pretty tough, and like 80% because his intelligence and wisdom had dibs on being in the bottom half. You're probably surprised I didn't make his wisdom the worst, but charisma had to take that given how often he tries to convince people of things. For a totally random example, let's go with, oh, I don't know, him being say-so, and how often people believe him, which is fucking never. You can bump it if you put more stake into Alban literally being an entertainer as his current job at Nijisanji, but if we start counting is a VTuber into these builds, all of them could count for the entertainer background, and that's boring. I guess addendum here in the middle of this video if you want to make any of these builds whatever passes for VTuber in your game, entertainer is how you go about that. Anyway, Alban being a Tabaxi means we don't need to fuck around with feats this time, or deal with the bonus skill proficiencies that would definitely help more if rogues didn't get double most other classes. Those are going to be acrobatics, investigation, sleight of hand, and performance, plus persuasion is viral from his background. Performance and persuasion covers ASMR and karaoke streams being his most popular. And actually, going back to his background, it would surprise no one that it's going to be Urchin. Yeah, this dude grew up poor and orphaned on the streets, fighting desperately for food and sleeping exposed to the elements. And those are literally lines I pulled straight from the Urchin section of the PHP. For his background tools, though, he already gets Thieves' Tools from Rogue, but he actually has Disguise, so that's one down. And what doesn't have a strict parallel to Alban Streamer Nox, a Forger Kit fits the theme and vies the build really well, and there's really nothing else. Like, the wiki didn't give me shit, so it's this or a game set. Next up, Fulgur Ovid, Robo Boy, the guy who straight up lied in his lore video like a fucking legend. If you were hoping for a Legatus build, I'm sorry, but that's A, actually already a D&D character, and B, I actually think we could do something more interesting with his Archivist lore. More accurately, I found his subclass I think is really cool, and I think his interactions with Millie during the golf stream were really fucking funny, and having D&D Ovid fuck with D&D Parfait is funny to me, so you can't stop me from making Fulgur a fucking wizard. He works with books, it's close enough, especially when we give him the Order of Scribes subclass at level 2. He doesn't need to go any higher to get the book abilities or to show up the WOC, and since level 1 wizard doesn't give shit, we only need to care about his subclass.
Warning, scuffed addendum incoming.
So, something I didn't actually know until after I'd recorded everything and edited more than half of this video is that he's canonically, according to him, beat Vox in a fight. Easily. Can't really do that level 2, so... it's a band-aid fix, give him 11 levels of fighter. Puts total 1 higher than Vox got and gets him the extra attack. Go champion subclass for better crits, better physicality, almost like it's cybernetically enhanced or something. And a second fighting style so you can get both arm fighting and 2 open fighting. Then just shove all 3 bully score increases into stats, plus 2 int, con, strength, so we can just move on. And since level 1 wizard doesn't give shit, we only need to care about his subclass. It gives him, for one, a magic quill, which mostly just does magic quill things, never needing ink, erasing its own ink, making transcribing spells easier, etc. The better bit is the improved spell book. That lets Fulgur use it as a spellcasting focus, which I really thought wizards could already do, but no, spellbooks aren't technically foci. But even better is casting 1 ritual spell per day at full speed, aka 10 minutes faster, aka 100 fucking turns. So yeah, just a little bit quicker. But even better is swapping the damage type of a spell for the damage type of a different spell of the same level. This is fantastic. You can do it as much as you want, and it actively encourages wizards to get more spells to get their damage types. And it lets you use your whole spell book, not just the good spells. And it doesn't really matter because damage type normally doesn't matter, like, at all. Oh, and it doesn't have much to do with Fulgur, actually. The quill is really why he's getting scribes, and I just wasted all of our time. But fuck it, he doesn't have anything else to go over at level 2 anyway, and I'm not gonna get a chance to use the subclass for a while, so it's staying in the script, damn it. Yes, I do know this subclass is all about knowing and studying magic, and the next 2 EN waves are both in schools where they know and study magic. Fucking weird that, huh? But those are complaints for future videos, and we've only covered Fulgur's class. For his stats, intelligence is going to be his best. He's an archivist and went to actual med school, so that's a given. Then since he's got unparalleled strength, constitution and strength are his next best. You might argue that strength should be the best since that's technically what his announcement text calls out, but I'll argue back that wizards need constitution to be physically strong way more than they need strength. Wisdom and charisma are next. Really could be higher than the numbers we've got left, but oh well. And finally dexterity and dead last. Mostly because that's what's left, but at least this time we can say it's because of his augmentations or nerd-ass profession. For race, surprise, surprise, the robot guy is getting the robot race, which is good and flexible, but we really only need to cover the bonus tool and skill proficiency. Brewer supplies and medicine. He's worked as a bartender and was, again, a pre-med student, which is actually another reason for him to be a wizard with Big Int, but I was too busy gassing up Order of Scribes earlier to mention it. Sucks that! The rest of his skills are going to be History and Arcana from Wizard for his Archivist profession, and Performance and Perception from Background for his original songs and his Cybernetic Super Eye. And Arcana specifically in the kind of esoteric booky way, like, it's the one that's probably gonna get used on books that don't need history. You can swap it out for one of the other intelligence skills left over if that's more relevant to your game or the backstory you use if you actually run this build, but stuff like that's beyond the scope of what I do here. The background in question is going to be Sage. Obviously, builds like this are why it exists. Just giving him double language is because, well, it fits well with the whole build idea, and he's already gained the relevant tool from Warforged. Unfortunately, Fulgur doesn't actually know that many languages, so those are going to be fucking, Elite Speak and Binary, which I only bring up because I worried someone would take the sheet wholesale without checking the details and want to point out how bad an idea that is. But finally, for spells, Shocking Grasp and Light are basically a taser and flashlight you can have built into his cybernetics. Mage Hand just makes writing and archiving things easier, and for his leveled spells, they're mostly just other potential augments like Shield, or Nurge like Illusory Script, so I don't feel like listing them all. Sorry. Now, last up is Yugo Asuma, the DJ who fought the law, and the law won, and then the law straight up isekai'd his ass with a fucking bullet. If there's no funny bit with his race like the last two, we're going back to regular humans. God, remember when those were rare? Good times. And to I'm sure everyone's shock, the DJ is going to be a bard. And fuck it, let's borrow the entertainer background while we're here. It lets the build actually play as a DJ instead of just being a music-themed caster like every other fucking bard. He's described specifically as a beginner DJ though, so we're going to keep his class level low at whopping 2, which gets him actually nothing interesting, so we can move right on to his stats. Charisma is going to be his best, with Strength as his second for his canonically sick abs, and Wisdom's third, since the dude hated cops so much he died, which is what we in the business call king shit. Intelligence next from setting up his own UI, and Dex above Constitution in last, since he got 1 tapped, so we know his health is real bad. And even with a +0 at level 2, it would end up a bit high, so negative health it is. Being a boring human, Yugo gets a feat, and much like his sensei, he's getting Magic Initiate to grab Thaumaturgy from the Cleric spell list. Not as critical as it was with Ike, but not having some kind of mic felt wrong, and Magic Initiate Cleric is just really good, so fuck it. Along with Thaumaturgy, he's also going to get Toll the Dead as a form of sound-adjacent attack, and Bless because it's really good. You could take Word of Radiance instead of Toll, since you could argue it works better as some kind of like damaging sound wave, but Word of Radiance sucks a big fat donkey ball, so I'm not doing that. We already covered what his background is, and as for what proficiencies it gives, those are going to be a language and Tinker's tools. You know, for the UI. We can do all the skills at once since Bard can pick any, so all told you get 6. Performance for his performances, pretty obvious. Persuasion, can't raise zero button without it. Athletics, again for his canon 6-pack. Insight, again for his incredibly based opinion on cops. And Arcana for the ancient arcane art of making his own UI, I guess. And we're still 1 short. Fuck. I mean, take whatever you want, really. I gave him Intimidation, because it's at least a Charisma skill, and if he had good Deception, he probably wouldn't have gotten caught by the cops. Not that it really makes a difference with Jack of all trades, but whatever. And finally, we can cover his spells, since I'm going to pretend that bars don't get 3 instruments I should deal with. Most important thing to know about them is that there's no healing or otherwise cure-type magic. If you can magically cure disease and heal wounds like actual Jesus fucking Christ curing the blind man, you just have better ways to inspire people than music. I stuck with mostly combat spells actually, as much as Bard gets combat spells, and along with Toll the Dead it makes the build a lot punchier than normal. Only real exception is the temp health from Heroism, but that still isn't any actual healing and is maybe the most inspiring spell available, so it felt right home the list. But that's it. Sorry again it took so long. Next video and the video after that are already mostly written, so they should come out pretty soon. Might even make a post about it. Who knows? I can do that now. Oh, also I stream now. Very fun. Yell at me in the comments if you want me to stream something or make a video about something. I've heard that's a good thing and also make the neurotransmitters in my brain go apeshit. But that's it. Go home. What did I just say? There's nothing else. Fuck off.